Hey, it's the announcement guy. I'm out here in front of the Children's Enrichment Center sitting on this new bench, just thinking, life is like a box of chocolates. Here's what's coming up. Coming up on Thursday, September 1st, is the beginning of a 4-week workshop, Parenting Tweens and Teens with Love and Logic. At about the age of 8 or 9, your kids move into the tween years and things start to change. So this is a great workshop to learn about navigating these years and enjoying them as well. Come on out and have some fun with some other parents.
I invite you September 8th, 9th, and 10th to a wonderful workshop, Unity in the Wilderness, where we will look at the universal principles of religious science with the natural laws of nature itself, combining those with the wisdom of the indigenous cultures. It's going to be an unforgettable experience, and I invite you to it.
This time of the year always is a back to school time for our kids, our teens. Well, it's the same for us at Mile High Church. We have adult classes here, spiritual living classes to support us on our journey. And we are launching a whole bunch of classes for the fall session, and we would love for you to join us. If you've never been in a class before, you want to start with Beyond Limits with Reverend Josh. And so we hope that you will consider that. And for any of you who are even slightly thinking about that practitioner prayer partner journey, we have classes that you can take that can keep you going through that pathway too. We have scholarships available that you can apply for, and we hope you will consider doing that. Please register on our website at milehighchurch.org.
So I'm back here in one of the great gardens of all time. This is just such a beautiful place, and it's kind of in its end of summer glory right now. Just enjoying a few cherry tomatoes and kind of conversing with the bees about some of the important issues. Life is pretty good. Have a great week.
To you all. It's good to be here. So now is the time of the service that we like to sing together, and if you would like to stand and do that, you're perfectly welcome to do that. If you want to remain seated, that's A-OK too. I'll meet you in the music. I'm going to start, and you'll echo. The words will be on the screen. It'll all make sense.
Thank you, Jennifer Burnett. Thank you, Mile High Band. Love you all. So grateful for them, aren't we? Good morning to all. Welcome to Mile High Church. So great to see each and every one of you here. Grateful to everyone who's watching us live online this morning. I wanted to share with you something special that we got to do because of your donations here. Our Giving Tree program, our holiday program that we do every year, we had this online Santa shop through the pandemic, and you gave so much money that we had this surplus. And so Reverend Jackie Harris and I got to thinking, and we got to take some of that money. We got to partner with one of our local Title I schools. These are the ones that have the families most in need. And we got to identify 30 families. And a few weeks ago, Dr. Michelle was there too. All these families showed up at our local Target here, and we got to spend $250 on each one to help them get well-needed school supplies and clothes. It was so very powerful. Some of our Make a Difference volunteers were there. And if you're part of our Make a Difference ministry, will you just identify yourself? We're so grateful for all that you do to support us. If you're interested in hearing more, see Reverend Jackie over there after service or myself. But it was a reminder to me that we usually start coming to this community for ourselves, right? And the great benefit you don't realize is all of a sudden you start doing an immense good for others, not just here in Mile High Church and in our families and loved ones, but out in the community. So thank you for giving us. It was one of the great joys that day. It was so special, the ability to do that. So let's hear it for ourselves this morning. And thank you for being a part of the service today. We're going to now move into that time of singing Surely the Presence, remembering the truth of who we are with a prayer from Reverend Carol, and then we'll see what happens from there. So let's take a collective deep breath as we center ourselves in this sanctuary, wherever we are this morning. How good it is to be together.
Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place. Surely the presence of God is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angel wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of God is in this place.
How beautiful it is to just take a moment this morning and come together in prayer. To take a deep collective breath and allow that divine presence to just enter into the stillness around us, the stillness within us. Just acknowledging and recognizing that God is everywhere present. And the beautiful sunrise over the Rocky Mountains this morning, and just in the beauty we see all around us, knowing that it is created and enhanced and enlivened by this divine presence. And feeling that creative intelligence alive within each and every one of us. And whether we're here in this beautiful sanctuary or watching at home online, we know and affirm that we are all connected in one mind, one heart, and that we beat as one. How wonderful to recognize that Mile High Church is like a kaleidoscope. And every time we turn the dial, there's a beautiful color or a gorgeous shape. And we celebrate that uniqueness and that diversity. All of it makes us whole. We also embrace all paths to God, honoring all faiths, knowing that all people of this world come together for good, for peace, knowing that that peace starts within our hearts, within each and every one of us. So grateful for all the unique voices here at Mile High that come together to express as one. And we honor each and every one of them. So grateful for the volunteers, for those committed to keeping Mile High thriving and alive. So grateful this morning for Reverend Josh, for his uplifting message, knowing that it gives us tools to live in our life each and every day. So grateful for the teachings of Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind philosophy in Mile High Church, knowing that it enhances us, enlarges our perspective, and uplifts us each and every day. And so I know that as I release these words into that beautiful alchemy of love and law, I know that all is well, because all is God, and so it is.
You are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, you are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, you are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, you are held in the hands of grace. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, you are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace.
Today's inspirational thoughts come from Nelson Mandela. the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. And from Helen Keller, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through experience of trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. And from Martin Luther King, Jr. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. And all those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. And I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. Losing friends and I'm chasing sleep. Everybody's worried about me. I'm in too deep. Yeah, I'm in too deep. It's been 2 years, I miss my home, but there's a fire burning in my soul. I still believe. Yeah, I still believe. And all of those things I didn't say, wrecking balls inside my brain. I will scream them loud tonight. Can you hear my voice this time? This is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. And I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I still got a lot of fight left in me. A lot of fight left in me. Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion. Like how a single word can make a heart open. I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. 'Cause this is my fight song. Take back my life song. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Starting right now, I'll be strong. And I'll play my fight song. And I don't really care if nobody else believes. 'Cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. Yeah, I've still got a lot of fight left in me.
Thank you, Jennifer Burnett, and this incredible Mile High Band. We had some shifts to our music this weekend, and so all the songs we're hearing, they came up with in the last 24 hours for us, and aren't they all perfect? Thank you so much, Jennifer Burnett. Especially thank you, Kent. Thank you, Rob, Josh, Bijou, the cute one we're calling him. There we go. Josh, you're still our Mickey Dolans. You're doing. There you go. The monkeys. You remember the monkeys, right? So great to see everyone this morning. Such an honor always to get to represent your wisdom and hopefully share it back to you in some way here on Sunday mornings. Albert Einstein was a genius, and yet he was known to be so caught up in solving problems that he could be a little absent-minded sometimes. And so there's a story that says that Einstein once boarded a train, and the conductor is going around punching tickets. And he sees Einstein fumbling, looking for his ticket. And he approaches Einstein and he says, "Sir, I know who you are. No worries, everything's okay. Thanks for figuring out this whole relativity thing." And he continues to go through punching tickets, and he looks back, and there's still Einstein clearly trying to find his ticket. And so he goes back and says, "Mr. Einstein, again, everything's all right. I know who you are." And Einstein replies, "I know who I am too, but the problem is I have no clue where it is that I'm going." And it speaks to our theme of real health and authentic well-being last week and this week, that it doesn't matter how great a genius you are, how talented, how skilled, how focused, how centered, that most of us are bound to have some struggles and challenges along the way, and better to embrace them than to run away from them. I'm going to throw out some terms this morning, do a little surveying of our in-person audience today, and I want you to tell me if you see the term as more of a negative or more as a positive. So the first one is surrender. Positive. How many negative? Negatives are going to raise their hands. Positives are going to say it out loud. Good. Next term, vulnerable. Scary. Yeah, that too. Where are my negatives at? Okay. And then lastly, struggle. Positive. How many for negative? Yeah. It could be both. There's no wrong answers. But at the heart of my message today is you can do these terms down or you can do them up. You can do them down or you can do them up. And I'm willing to bet that each and every one of you this morning has a place in your life where you're being called to surrender. A place where you are actually probably feeling vulnerable, and a place where you may be struggling. To surrender down is generally to give up. It's to become a bit of a defeatist. So often, unfortunately, it can be to give away your power to someone else or someone else's negative opinion of you. That's to surrender down. But to surrender up is to do one of those most courageous actions you can do, which is to show up fully in your life and release attachment to outcome. It's to let go and let God and surrender to a mind that's greater than yours to work in your life. Think about that in a moment in your life where you may be called to surrender. You can surrender down or you can surrender up. In a place where you may be vulnerable right now. To vulnerable down is to seek to build a fortress around that tenderness. It's to not let people in, and it's to keep your emotions in and not let them out, only postponing that tenderization that's really primed for growth. Because to vulnerable up is to move away those defenses. It's to be willing to be transparent. It's the willingness to ask for support and help. It's the willingness to have that courageous conversation. It's willing to be transparent to what is within you so that tenderness can grow in you as a greater human being. And to struggle. We always are at choice to struggle down or struggle up. To struggle down is to identify more with the challenge than the situation, which leads to being stuck. It's kind of like a home. There's no place like stuck. There's no place like stuck. To struggle down is to lose yourself in the struggle. To struggle up is to say that this struggle is an initiation into a solution. To struggle up is to say that this struggle is here for me to bring forth the best that is within me for transformation or change. So what is it for you? Are you surrendering down or are you surrendering up? Are you vulnerable down or vulnerable up? Do you struggle down or do you struggle up? And that's what I want to share today, is that you can struggle up and make a huge difference in yourself, in your life, and in the lives of others. One of the first points I want to make about struggling up today is that your struggles are not really where your challenges are, but where your greatest gifts reside. Your struggles are really where your greatest gifts reside. And I don't know if it's true for you, but for me, when I think about the places where I struggle most, they're often the places where I want to be the best of who I am, where my gifts are most being called for. So the three places where I struggle most are in my ministry, in my marriage, and in my attempt to be a father, working on all those things. And I love ministry, and if you ask me why I became a minister, it's because I need spiritual community. I love spiritual community, and maybe some of you are like this. There was part of me that maybe was egotistical and didn't want to admit how much I needed it. So I needed to find a job of service, something to do. So why not get paid for it? Become a minister, right? I don't know if I wasn't a minister, maybe I wouldn't come to church. See, it keeps me going because I need that collection of all ages of people coming together, and it's been the greatest gift in my life. And ministry is a big job. It's kind of a way of life. It can be 24/7 in the terms of preparation and trying to be there for people and the support and all of that. And the struggle begins to occur when there's a wrestling match between work and living life for God. Right? Having that spiritual practice. Things are good when the work comes out of the dedication to God, but things get out of balance when I'm choosing the work and the stress over the divine timing. And this is true for any of us that has a work or way in being in the world that's about committing yourself to a power and a cause greater than yourself. We can get stuck. And so for me, to struggle down is to complain. It's to get overly busy. It's to get drained and give myself to the grind. But to struggle up is to commit to making that time for the divine in my life. Henry Nouwen, the great Catholic priest, had the opportunity to have a bit of a counseling session with Mother Teresa. How cool would that be? And he took the time to share all of his struggles and where he was experiencing pain and where he was unsure what to do in his life. And Mother Teresa listened and listened, St. Teresa, and she looked at him and she said one sentence. And she said, "Make sure that you give an hour to our Lord each day and do your best to do nothing wrong, and everything will turn out fine." And I love that. There's a clarity in that for all of us. No matter what the struggle that may be taking place, can you find an hour each day, even if you have to spread out the time, to give to what is most sacred and meaningful and feeding your heart, and allow the best to come out of that, and try not to do anything wrong. Sounds pretty easy, and it's amazing how things can work out when we do just that. In my marriage, I often see three entities. So there's me, my beautiful wife, April, and then there's this marriage that we've created together. And when things are operating at their highest level, this marriage increases who we are as individuals and makes us more. But where the struggle begins is when that marriage can start taking from the individuality of either one of us. And so there's this struggle there. I like to quote Rainer Maria Rilke to my wife, and I say, "Sweetie, the purpose of marriage is to protect your partner's solitude." I like that one. I once caught her Googling how to live with Monk. So I like my alone time. So I start to struggle down in the relationship when I get into a place of resentment, when I get into a place of blame, when I get into this strange illusion I can fall under that somehow I can't meet my own needs or ask for what I want. And I begin to struggle up when I can trust in the marriage, when I can trust in my partner, when I can trust in myself to have any conversation that I need to that has to do with mutual support. And most of all, I struggle up when I find this curious paradox that when I give myself to loving my spouse, all of a sudden my own needs are met. in a powerful way. To quote Rilke once again, it is also good to love, because love is difficult. For one human being to love another human being, that is perhaps the most difficult task that has been entrusted to us. The ultimate task, the final test and proof, the work for which all other work is merely preparation. I love getting to be a dad to our teenager and to our toddler. It's a wonderful experience. And yet the struggle can begin when I'm torn between this opportunity to be a father and wanting to be other things too. I had the opportunity to have my daughter for 4 days, just me, and since she has a great mom from that dad perspective, I thought I did a great job of being with her. There was probably more dirty clothes and toys on the floor when mom came home. But I noticed the only time I would really struggle is when I was expecting time for myself that wound up not taking place. Oh, she'll be asleep by 9. Think again. She'll nap for an hour. Oh, think again. And there's this thing about our children that they remind us that we're not who we think we are in the world. I know who you are. You're my daddy, and you will do these things. And so I noticed this probably unhealthy resentment, and that was the struggling down, was this idea of, oh, poor me, and oh, I want to be doing these other things, and getting down on myself, as opposed to struggling up, which is to say, if my other work is really important to me, I'm going to make up this time. Right? And I'm not going to blame my kids for it. I'm going to move into that state, and God knows there's no sweeter sound in my heart than, Daddy, I love you. It's a wonderful feeling. So enough about me. Let's talk about you. Is that true for you, that those places where you might be struggling right now are really places where you care the most, where your gifts are being called for the most? It's time to bring them. It's time to struggle up. It's time to remember another essential key about struggling up is that although struggle is almost always part of the process, it's never the end of the story. Remember that. Struggle is almost always part of the process. If you're struggling right now, good. It's okay. It's not a negative statement about who you are. But remember, the struggle is not all there is. It's never the end of the story. Part of the impetus for this topic today came 10 years ago. I was listening to an interview with an American educator who had gone to study the school system in Japan. And he shares about being in an elementary school classroom, and the teacher introduces a brand new topic and invites a child who they knows nothing about it to work out a problem on the board in front of the class. And the American educator is a little aghast by this, because the student is clearly feeling some pressure. The students are asking questions. The teachers are asking questions, and they're clearly struggling. And yet it's the American educator who's having the most difficult time, because from his perspective, the culture here is more that we try to avoid struggle. Any of us do that with our children. Sometimes we want to protect them from struggle and wind up sometimes causing delays in them learning to give their gifts. So I'm not saying the Japanese educator was doing the right thing, and we definitely don't want to be abusive or anything like that, but do you see that point, that sometimes a little struggle can go a long way to opening ourselves up to bringing forth the best that is within us, and it can lead to a great story. Speaking of a great story in education, this just happened a couple weeks ago. There's an emerging great novelist here in America. His name is Jamil John Koche. And in second grade, as an Afghani American, only having Farsi and languages that weren't English in his home, he only knew 10 letters in the alphabet. And he shared that up to that time in second grade, school kind of felt like a punishment. You got the wrong answer. You're wrong. And he felt bad about himself. And he had a second grade teacher named Mrs. Long who saw his struggle and created space every day after school and taught him how to read and to write. And Koche went on with his young life, obviously sometimes forgetting teachers, losing track of Mrs. Long. And when he was about to graduate high school with honors, he began to look back as that being the real essential origin story of his own superhero existence. Mrs. Long taking that time to build that space in his struggle to become his best self. So he tried to find her in high school. He couldn't track her down, forgetting, remembering. And then along with one of his famous books, he wrote an essay about the impact that Mrs. Lung had had on his life. And Susan Lung was at her neurologist's office, and the neurologist said, "Did you used to teach in Sacramento, California?" "Oh, yes, I did. Hey, I think this essay is about you." And you can imagine how surprised and impressed she was and how touched she was by that. And she looked him up and found out that he was going to be at a reading in Davis, California, which is close to that area. And she showed up and they reconnected for the first time in those 20 plus years. And there's a picture from his Twitter feed that we can see of them coming back together. Again, you can see the big smile on his face. And what a wonderful expression, especially as we're heading back to school. Teachers, where are you? In the room? Or at home? Yeah. What a wonderful and awesome opportunity you have to make such a big difference in these kids' life. And these stories happen all the time, but the rarity is the getting to honor it, right? The getting to come together and to see the great work that you do. The purpose of struggle isn't to overwhelm us, but to give us the ability to bring forth what's best in ourselves. Can you think of that struggle you might be experiencing right now and say, this is happening to bring forth the best that is within me? Does that resonate? Does that sound true? Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says, "Throw yourself with complete abandon into the all-consuming fire of inward conviction." It's a very grand way of saying, go within. Complete abandon into the consuming fire of inward conviction. Say, which means we get to say it out loud together. Know that the divine Spirit is operating through me now. I know that I am not limited by anything that has happened or by anything that is now happening. I am entering into an entirely new set of conditions and circumstances. That which has no limit is flowing through my consciousness into action. And when he says say, or when we're reading these things, there are such statements of truth that we're called to embody. Say that quietly every morning this week. Own that. Build that space to bring forth the best that is within you. And the struggles, I'm never going to say they're fun, but they can lose their ability to cause you suffering, to create immense anxiety for you, or to have you feeling in that stuckness. It can free that spirit so you can bring it into your life, and you never know what you might accomplish. One more education story. George Danzig, a famous mathematician, tells the story of going to college early on and being about 15 minutes late to class, and he sees that there's a couple problems written up on the board. So he sees that they're homework and he writes them down and goes through the rest of the class and gets to work on these problems at night. And he's not able to complete. It's too hard. He's really struggling. It takes him 3 days to finally come up with the answers. He brings his paper in to his professor, apologizing profusely. "I'm so sorry, this is late." The teacher looks at the paper and starts chasing after the student and explains to him, "This was not homework. These were two unsolvable problems that you wrote down and accomplished." It's amazing when we don't know how much we're supposed to struggle, how we can get things done. Know that divine Spirit is operating through you. Know that you're not limited by anything that has happened or anything that is now happening. Know that you step into an entirely new set of conditions and circumstances, and that there is no limit to that divine consciousness in you and what it can do in your life. Believe that. Believe that because it's true. That's how powerful each one of you are. If we can take the time to remember it, if we can surrender up instead of down, vulnerable up instead of down, struggle up instead of down. The key point I want to make about struggling up today is that this struggle is initiation into solution. Struggling up means that this struggle is initiation into solution. That's all that it is. I am not a believer that God brings us struggle. I'm not a believer that God brings us suffering or pain in any way. But I am a believer that struggle is a natural part of human and spiritual growth. It's bound to occur. However, what I do believe is that there is such thing for each of us that we might call spiritual initiation. Spiritual initiation begins to take place in our life when there's a part of us in our heart that has said yes to living a whole and complete life, that has said yes to our wholeness, that has said yes to believing in a divine power that's greater than we are, that we can use and can use us, that says yes to being a presence of peace and love in the world. Because what can begin to happen is we get so caught up in our reality tunnels, our way of seeing the world, that it gets boring and stale. Our God becomes boring and stale. Ourselves become boring and stale. Our lives seem boring and stale to us. And when that happens, spirit gets mischievous. Right? There's something about our yes that calls forth the divine to begin what might seem like challenging us, but all that it's asking us to do is to let go of the old, of what's over, and in our own perspective, even though it may have worked for us for a time, and to bravely and boldly step into a new way of being. And here's the great thing about this. It actually requires that you stop struggling. When things start going awry in your life and you identify that this is an initiation for my spirit here, the trick is to actually let go of the struggle, because the part of you that struggles is the part of you that's trying to control everything, that thinks you're in charge, and you're not. So you get to take the time to go within, to that place of conviction within you. You get to take that time to be in nature, to be in the silence, to spend time with loved ones, to have the divine inform your heart, and so you can say, oh, now I remember. Now I recall this truth of who I am. And an amazing thing can begin to happen. The struggle can sometimes take care of itself. And it's just been an initiation into solution. I love a Buddhist proverb that goes something like this. There is really nothing you must be, and there is really nothing you must do. There is really nothing you must have, and there is nothing you must know. There is really nothing you must become. However, it helps to understand that fire burns, and when it rains, the earth gets wet. But you take that, oh, isn't that good to know there's no one I have to be and nothing I have to do? But it's good to remember that fire burns, and when it rains, the earth gets wet. And when we find that place where the divine is feeding our heart again, when we step into viewing our lives anew, when we bring that deeper element of ourselves that our life is calling for, it's then that we can be in the moment and know that there's not an answer to the problem. It's not about what we're called to do. It's who we're called to become in light of whatever struggle is that brings forth this magnificence and this truth that is within us that lets us do the best that we can. Norman Lear, the great Norman Lear, just turned 100 years old, famous television producer, great American patriot. He talks about this creative tension in the present moment between over and next. We are always in this creative tension in the moment between over and next. And he wrote a great memoir, my favorite memoir title of all time, Even This I Get to Experience. And in it, he talks about one of his many events celebrating him, probably his 20th retirement party. And he shares something quite profound to me. He says, even there at that event, I was still so excited for the first taste of coffee in the morning. It's a good example of over and next. And he shares to the crowd there and his thoughts about it. He says, as much as I loved it, as grateful as I am to all of you, this evening is over. And I am on to next. When something, however great it was, is over, it wants to be over without regret because immediately available is next. Reflecting on this later, I imagined a bulging hammock between over and next and realized that is where the struggle to live in the moment resides. What's over, folks? What's over? And what's next? And you don't have to release the over with sadness. It's not necessarily the type of over that says, I'm leaving this job or I'm leaving this relationship. It can be. But it's just as much that way of thinking, that way of being that's no longer serving us and keeping us from stepping into being that more bold, creative ourselves. Next can be scary because it's filled with the unknown, but for the very same reasons, it can be so exciting and exhilarating to know that this future that I step into is even greater than as great as what's been before. I can step into this great next in awareness and grounded in the divine, willing not to surrender down, but to surrender up, letting go and letting the divine act and be a real part of my life. I don't have to step into next vulnerable down, protecting myself, afraid, but courageously, even in the fear, being transparent, speaking my truth, having the courage to be who I am in a more meaningful way. And I step into next, not struggling down, not identifying with the challenges and somehow seeing them as a reflection on myself, but struggling up, embracing the idea that the solution is in my very becoming, to step into this next, willing to play, willing to be authentic, willing to live in a new level of health that allows me to embrace the best of what is waiting for me. So just taking that into prayer, I invite you to join me if you choose. Invite any of our incredible prayer practitioners to stand representing the incredible beings that hold our spiritual community in each of our lives in grace and in love. So in this moment, letting what is over be over, let us courageously step into that next consciousness, that next awareness that allows ourselves a new way of being with the Spirit within and all around us, that allows us to move out of any judgments that no longer serve us, to embrace a new level of curiosity and creativity. And let us let go of worn out self-worry and doubt, to just give a chance to being that whole, healthy, authentic self that perhaps we might be afraid could be judged by some aspect, but really when we be it and become it, will so resonate and inspire others. I know in this consciousness of next, this consciousness of right now, this consciousness of upward movement, even through the struggles of our lives, that there is a divine presence that provides us with a grand awareness of great peace, of deep inspiration, of that bold calling to accept ourselves as we are, children of God in this moment, endowed by that divine Spirit with a creative power of mind and heart to express and be in a way that byproduct is healing and forgiveness, that's understanding and growth, that's creativity and strength, and a greater awareness of the joy in this thing called life. Let us become that joy. Let us embrace our life and everything in it, but always remembering the power within us to transform and co-create in wonderful and magnificent ways. And so it is. Amen.
God is all there is. God is all there will ever be. God is all there is. God is all there will ever be. God is all there is. God is all there will ever be. God is all there is. God is all there will ever be. God is all there will ever be. God is all there will ever be.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, band. As we move into this time of offering, like I shared at the beginning of the service, I'm so impressed by the reach of our spiritual community. I'm so grateful that we can come and share our abundance and reach out into our local community and help families and children. I'm so grateful in terms of reach. I was mentioning last week about 2,300 people a week take in our service live and throughout the week. And right now about 500 people are watching us online. Cynthia's in Spain. Penny's in Madrid. Beverly is from Long Island. I don't know where she is, but she's grateful for the streaming. James misses his Mile High family, and he can't wait to be back very soon. And so, inside people, let's greet the outside people. Let's say hello. Outside people, greet the inside people. And we're all one, but what a wonderful expression of reach, even though it's so hard to all get together in the same place at the same time, is to recognize the many different ways that we reach and connect with one another and as spiritual community. So thank you for everything that you do to financially support Mile High Church and to affirm your own abundance and the abundance of everyone in our community. And now is an opportunity to physically or metaphorically take our offering and bless it as one. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. And so it is.
Thank you. Great way to end this service. Give a hand to the band and Jennifer. We are so gifted to have them with us. So I want to invite anyone who is new to us here at Mile High to come out to the Welcome Center. We have a volunteer there. I would say even if you haven't gotten to know us very well, you can check the Welcome Center or our resource centers. Our practitioners have just come down front. They are here to do a brief affirmative prayer on something you're struggling up with or something that you want more of. So I really encourage you to use them. Our practitioners also are available online, and 24/7 you can put prayer requests in, and then you can also go out to the windows of our lobby and write a prayer request.
Thank you, Jackie. Stacy Butters, our youth director, but also representing all of our incredible youth teachers. We talked about education some today. Let's hear it for all of our youth volunteers, wherever you are. And you're working overtime today. What's going on?
Yeah, so Youth and Family is hosting an end of summer party out on the plaza, and you are all invited. We've got hot dogs, we've got popcorn, we've got popsicles, we've got some community art and a service project. So I hope to see you all stopping by out there.
Hot dogs? All right.
And our teens have come up with this cool thing of hosting the Minister Drink of the Week. So if you want to stop by and see what Josh is drinking, you can do that as well.
There's not a splash of schnapps, I promise. Hey, consider signing up for an accredited class this fall. Beyond Limits, so many great ministers teaching great classes. What a great commitment to your spirituality as we move into that. You can learn all about them online and sign up there as well. And if you haven't checked it out yet, Wednesday Night Insight, just kind of a digital-only insight from a minister. There's a little meditation and a prayer from our practitioner. It airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m., and you can watch after that on YouTube or Facebook. And this Wednesday, our own Jackie Harris has an insight to share with us, so looking forward to that. With that, I invite you to stand if you'd like as we say our benediction and sing our peace song, knowing right where we are, there is that upward trajectory moving us up into greater levels of consciousness, understanding, and inspiration. And so it is. Amen.